Right, everyone, it's time we go over the new fighter class for One D&D. Um, I haven't heard too much about this. People are too busy complaining about stuff like, the rogue, the ranger being even more useless than it was in the 2014 player handbook, and of course, the paladin having the divine smite be a bonus action now. Um, all valid complaints. I don't know about the ranger one. It was pretty useless in 2014. I find it very hard to believe they made it more useless, but hey, I suppose anything's possible. We haven't gone over that one yet. We'll get to it eventually, I promise. For now, let's get started on the fighter.
The fighter, in addition to being one of the most popular classes in 5th edition
For
D&D,
some
is
reason.
also one of the oldest classes. This is the person who is
Here's the thing. I understand why people play the fighter. It's the simplest class. Well, it's the simplest, second only to the ranger, which is as simple as it is useless. But the fighter is the simplest class. I recommend it for new players. Just because all you have to learn how to do is roll your dice to see if you hit, and then roll your dice to see how much damage you do. That's it. They don't really have any nuance to them, depending on which subclass you go with. Um, so they're very simple, which is why I think they're the most popular. I don't think they're the most popular because of how much fun they are, or how much versatility they bring to the table, or even a necessity they bring to the table. A lot of my veteran players, they have parties without a fighter all the time. The fighter's not a necessity. It's among veteran players, I don't think it's really popular. But that's just based off of my personal experience. Most people who want to play a melee class are either playing, maybe not in the 2024 player handbook, but before, they were either playing paladin or barbarian, um, just so that they bring the big numbers for DPS. But statistically speaking, if all we're looking at is numbers, yes, the fighter is a very popular class, and I think that's mostly because of its simplicity. So let's hope it still has some of that simplicity.
essentially you can put any weapon in their hand and they know how to use it and they know how to use it well. And if you look at the new player's handbook, the fighter and I think the ranger, they are sort of neck and neck in just the number of brand new features that
Oh, wow.
they get in this book.
Right.
All the baseline goodies are still there: extra attack and it increasing, action surge, etc. This is just how much that is brand new in the fighter.
Right.
That is being joined with the features that the class had before. First off, of course, weapon mastery, brand new. Also, fighters now get a feature called Tactical Mind, which allows them to expend uses of their second wind when they fail an ability check, to roll a die, add it to that check, and try to turn their failure into a success. Now, we were able to introduce this new feature because we also enhanced Second Wind so that fighters can now use it more often than they used to be able to.
Right.
And as fighters go up in level, their number of Second Wind uses increases, which means not only do they now have more uses.
I think that's really cool. I do. Having the ability to basically go, you know what? I know I failed that check, but let's go ahead and make it so I don't. That's great. And I'm not saying it's not gonna see use, but the fact that you have to give up a use of second wind in order to do it, second wind is kind of a key part of any fighter toolkit. It's a necessity, especially in combat, and I don't see anybody really wanting to give up some of their resources just for a random skill check. I could be wrong, been wrong before, and I know that if you guys disagree, you're gonna let me know. We're gonna talk about it in the comments below. Um, I just I don't know. I feel like second wind is a lot more useful than I don't know, picking the lock to get through a door. I don't know, maybe you really, 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 really need through that door. But I don't see this particular feature being used too much. I know it'll see use. Don't get me wrong. It will see use. I've got some players that should they decide to play a fighter again, which is doubtful, but if they decide to, I know them well enough to know that they'll use this feature. But I don't know. I think giving up a second wind, even if you're getting more or the ability to have more, um, unless it's a staggering amount of second wins that you're getting, I just don't see this seeing too much use. But we'll see.
To use on their self-healing, which is what Second Wind could do previously, but now they can also use it on Tactical Mind to try to turn, again, failed ability checks into successful ones.
And that's very much on theme with fighters. Like, they persevere, and it may not just be to, like, heal up and get into the fight again. It may be to, like, you're trying to grasp for something, or you're trying to do this one thing with the last bit of strength in you.
Absolutely. And also, Tactical Mind is part of our effort to give the fighter also some special capability in situations that might not be combat. Most of the fighters' abilities are naturally combat oriented. It's in the name.
Yeah.
They're all about fighting.
Yep.
But nonetheless,
should be.
we, in every class, as we revisited it for the new player's handbook, made sure that every class had something that they could bring to the table also outside combat. And so Tactical Mind is a big option there, again at level 2. At level 5, they get Tactical Shift. Now, this allows them, whenever they use their second wind as a bonus action to regain hit points, to also move up to half their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. We wanted fighters, as the battlefield tacticians, to have a bit of an easier time moving around the battlefield, especially when they're in danger. And so that's why this is connected to second wind, that, you know, those times where the fighter is like, uh-oh, we want the fighter to be able to tactically reposition themselves, whether they need to do that to save themselves or move themselves into a better position to protect their allies, because some fighters are built as tanks, but then other fighters are built as archers, as skirmishers.
Some fighters are built as archers. They are. And the fact that you can do that is why most people would play a fighter over a ranger. Sorry, that made me giggle because it reminded me of Joe Cat's video on was it like a poop guide to the ranger, where it starts off with so you want to play a ranger, play a fighter, video over. That always made me laugh.
Skirmishers, part of the beauty of the class is that you can build a fighter to fill many different tactical roles. Level 9, they get Tactical Master. You can see a theme here, since each of these new features has the word tactical in it. We have, you know, Tactical Mind, Tactical Shift, and now Tactical Master. Tactical Master at level 9 lets the fighter, whenever they are using a weapon and are using that weapon's mastery property, lets them replace that property when they strike with the weapon with the push, sap, or slow mastery properties, which basically means the fighter always, once they reach level 9, always has those 3 mastery properties in their pocket.
Yeah.
And so whatever mastery property is on the weapon they're using, they always know, okay, if in a pinch I need one of those other 3 mastery properties, I can invoke it. And this is a replacement of a feature we experimented with in Unearthed Arcana that was allowing fighters to completely switch which mastery properties were on their weapons. We found that not only was that not super popular in the UA series, but it was also on the back end in our development creating a number of headaches for the system down
Yeah.
the line. So that is no longer present. Instead, we felt both in our development and in our playtesting, it was far more preferable and fun to just give the fighter these 3 properties that the fighter could just say, nope, I'm going to use this one now, regardless of what the mastery property is on the weapon that I'm using.
I, again, being obsessed with the Battlemaster, all of those weapon mastery abilities for those weapons can stack and layer on to your battle maneuvers all at the same time.
Yes.
So there are some really juicy combinations. If you're a Battlemaster, you're using a maneuver, you can use an additional effect from that weapon, and now you have this massive toolbox of combinations that you've never had before.
Exactly. So the Battlemaster's mini game of deciding which maneuver to use at any point just became an even more intricate mini game because you're figuring out which maneuver to use paired with which weapon mastery.
If you want to like stack, pushing an opponent a little bit with one of your maneuvers, and then also stacking the weapon mastery to push an opponent even further, you can get up to some really nasty business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At level 13, the fighter gets
I think that's fantastic. Being able to stack weapon masteries, weapon mastery abilities like that is a neat trick that I think really fits well with the fighter. I know it's going to cause some shenanigans at some tables, and I love shenanigans personally. They make for a lot of fun when DMing. Being able to roll with those punches, it's just I know a lot of DMs are going to hate the shenanigans that get brought on because a lot of them don't like shenanigans for some reason. It's part of the game. But the fighters really needed some kind of oomph that they were definitely missing before, and I think that's a step in the right direction. I do like it, though. I think it's fantastic.
a feature that I've actually been wanting to give fighters for years called studied attacks. And this gives the fighter advantage on their next attack roll against a target if they miss them. With this idea, again, of fighters being the battlefield masters, like they're sizing up their opponent.
Yeah.
And you can imagine it with the fighter more than anyone else of like, well, I missed you this time, but I just figured out something about you, and so I'm going to have a better chance of hitting you next time.
Right.
And you can see this sort of starting to snowball and can be a lot of fun. Fighters then at level 19 also get a new feature that all classes now get at level 19 that replaces the ability score improvement that they had at that level, and it is the Epic Boon feature. And this is the feature that unlocks for fighters, as well as every other class who gets this feature, the ability to choose an Epic Boon feat. Now, the fighter, like everyone else, also has the option of choosing a non-Epic Boon feat at this level. It's just like when you choose, or rather when you're given ability score improvement, you have the option of taking that or another feat. Same here with Epic Boon. But I think you're going to want to choose the Epic Boon feat because the Epic Boon feats, they not only include an ability score increase in them, but that increase can go past the normal maximum of 20.
Yeah.
And they include abilities that really go beyond what feats can normally do. And there's a reason why these feats are not available until 19th level. Like one of them, just as an example, and it's particularly relevant to the fighter's interests, is one of the Epic Boon feats is called the Boon of Combat Prowess, which allows you, when you miss, to just decide you hit. And you can do this. You can do this only once per turn, but my goodness, is that good?
Yeah.
And the Epic Boon feats, there's another one where you now have True Sight, meaning within a certain range, you can see anyone who's invisible.
What their actual form truly
yes,
is.
You can see through illusions. Really powerful. We have another epic boon where when you take the attack action or the magic action, hey, you can also teleport. So you can see how these epic boons, once you reach level 19, can really supercharge how your character functions as they near the end of a normal D&D character's career. Now, I put it that way because we
So I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll say it as many times as I have to. I love all of the work that they're putting into these end of leveling class boon feats, the epic boon feats. Like it's cool. A lot of them are really cool, especially these ones for the fighter. They're great. The problem I have is they're more or less forcing you to play a singular class the entire time. And I've never seen anyone do that wasn't forced to do it. And by forced to do it, I mean, they had a DM that wouldn't let them multi-class. Granted, I don't get to be a player very often. I am currently playing in a campaign with my wife and her friends, where I'm actually the player, and I'm an artificer right now. But I've already got plans to multi-class once we hit the 6th level, because the artificer at the 5th level gets some really cool feats that I can't remember off the top of my head, and then after that it's like, man, I don't care anymore. It's time to switch to a different class. So multi-classing is huge. It's helpful. It's fun. It brings freshness to the game. So I don't see anyone getting to the 19th fighter level to get these epic boons, no matter how cool they are. And I think it's really cool that once per turn they can be like, no, I hit. Yeah, it's only one attack over the like 4 or 5 that they get, depending on how much they change. We won't know for sure exactly how many attacks they get by the 19th level until we have the book in hand. But we know that the fighter gets, second most amount of attacks, second only to the monk technically, because of flurry of blows, their extra strike they use by spending key points, crap like that, nonsensical stuff like that. So it may only be one attack per turn that you could basically say, no, I hit you, but that's still really cool, and it's just not going to see any use because it's a 19th level feat. Nobody's going to stick with the fighter 19 levels without multiclassing. I just don't see it happening. I've never seen it happen. Once again, unless people are forced to by not being allowed to multiclass by their DMs, which is nonsense. I still firmly believe that if your DM doesn't let you multiclass, you should walk away from that table, because what else are they not going to let you do, right? But that's my personal hang-up. But they're really cool, and it's not just really cool with just the fighter. It was really cool with the warlock, and the wizard had a cool one. I can't remember what the clerics was, but I remember it being fairly fun sounding, right? It's just nobody's gonna get to him. I don't foresee anybody getting to him, no matter what. So it's neat. I'm glad that they're putting work into it. I just wish it wasn't, 19, 20, I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
We also include rules in the new player's handbook that if your DM wants you to keep playing at level 20, you can go beyond the power that characters normally have once they sort of reach the ceiling or reach the level cap. Because now, every time you hit a certain amount of XP, you can pick another one of these epic boon feats, or another feat if you so choose. Meaning if you play at level 20 long enough, you could conceivably get one of your scores all the way up to 30. Meaning that at that point you are truly god tier.
Yeah.
See, that's neat. That's cool. I know I sometimes, with my high level campaigns, I sometimes integrate a way to continue leveling up past 20, but I know not every DM does that, and he's not specifying that you'll level up. He's saying that you'll still be level 20, but every set amount of experience you'll be able to pick another epic boon, which means you're still level 20, If your DM doesn't want you to be able to level up past 20, you're still level 20. Like you're still not able to put more levels into the fighter level, which means if you've only got fighter level 18 by the time you hit player or character level 20, you won't ever have access to these feats, because you have to have access to the epic boon feat before you can start taking more and more of them. Or at least that's the way I'm interpreting it. I could be wrong. He's not reading this stuff word for word from the handbook, so maybe you can pick these epic boons regardless of your level after 20 when you hit those, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. We'll know for sure once we get the handbook in hand, but I don't know. It's neat. It's cool that you'll be able to essentially get some stats up to 30. But I don't know.
That's perfect. That's awesome.
And again, that epic boon goodness is something that every character is going to have access to. Now with the fighter, I'm going to loop all the way back to the beginning before we dive into subclasses to touch also on some enhancements in existing features. I already mentioned that Second Wind now has more uses than it used to have.
Right.
But also the baseline fighting style feature that fighters get has been enhanced. And it's been enhanced in several ways. First off, there are new fighting style options that weren't present in 2014. There's now blind fighting, interception, and thrown weapon fighting, and unarmed fighting. Each of these made their debut in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and they've now graduated into the player's handbook, and they have been adjusted to now be fully at home with all of the other options in this book. We've also improved the protection option that was present before, and you can also, and this is a biggie, you can also now change the fighting style that you chose
Right.
every time you gain a fighter level. It used to be that you would choose it and
That was it.
that was it for the rest of your career. We've now given the fighter the ability every time they level up to change their mind. They might decide, I've been more of an archer than a frontline warrior, and so I want to change what fighting style feat I'm using.
That's great.
And that's
That brings a
something I
new level
also
of
enjoy about
versatility.
Weapon Mastery as well, is that you mentioned several times that you can go through training drills and adjust.
Yes.
Yeah, you can train up on a different weapon and a different, yeah.
And that is a key piece of the fighter's weapon mastery feature. And the other weapon mastery features is exactly that. Yeah, that you pick the weapons that you unlock, but then you can change them.
Yeah.
And this is all about us giving players more ways to explore different parts of the game and not feel that they make a choice and they're stuck with it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Now, there are certain choices that, yeah, they're for the character's life, unless something extraordinarily magical alters something. Like, for instance, most characters' species will never change,
Right.
although, you know, they might be reincarnated, and that could certainly change their species. Similarly, most characters never change their class, although they might delve into another class via multiclassing. But within some of these big
I don't like the way he worded that. That the way he worded that is going to cause a lot of confusion among new players. So if there's any new players watching this, when you multiclass, your class changes. It does. Are you still a fighter? Yes, technically, but your class changes. Whatever level you just put your level into, your most recent level into, like if you start off as a fighter and you hit 6th level fighter, and you decide you want to, at the 7th level, you want to multi-class into paladin. You know, you decide you really wanted some divine smite up in there. You're now a paladin, right? For that level, you are a paladin. You're still a fighter. You're a fighter paladin. But for the context of leveling, you are a paladin. By that, I mean you don't get anything that you would have gotten at a 7th level fighter, because you're a paladin now. The reason why I make this distinction is because you need 19 levels into fighter to get the epic boon feats And I don't want any new player to hear this and go, oh, so I'm a fighter no matter what. So even if I multi-class, I'll still be getting levels into fighter. I'm level 19 now, and yeah, I've multi-classed into 2 different classes, but I'm level 19 now, and I'm still a fighter, so I get this epic. No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that one. That's not how it works. So your class does change. You will always be a fighter, but whatever class you leveled up last, that's your class. And it's kind of a weird area because, like I said, you are still a fighter, and whatever class you multi-classed into, but you're no longer a fighter in the mindset of level ups because you don't get your 7th level into fighter because you decided to multi-class into paladin, and then you take paladin for 3 levels and then you multi-class into sorcerer so you can have more spells, so that means that you're going into your 10th level, and your 10th level is sorcerer. You still only have 6 levels into fighter, so you still don't have any fighter feats past the 6th level, because that's how many levels you were a fighter. You're not a fighter anymore. It's one of those things where if you ever talk to a Marine, even when they're out, they'll say, I'm still a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. It's the same thing. Once a fighter, always a fighter. You're just not leveling it up anymore. So I don't like the way he worded that because it could cause confusion among new players. He's not entirely wrong, but he's not overly right either. Your class does change when you multi-class, at the very least in the sense of level ups, and that's a very important distinction to have.
Choices that usually remain true throughout a character's career, we've looked for ways to give people more avenues to explore different options in the game. In a way, the fighter, to me, finally is truly the sort of weapon master equivalent of the wizard in terms of flexibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
The wizard, who is not actually our biggest damage dealer when it comes to spells, but the wizard has the most versatility when it comes to spells.
Yeah.
And fighters now have that kind of versatility with weapon use, with tactical options. But we've also made it so that you get to determine how deeply you go into the amount of choice, because that's a big part of your subclass decision. And the 4 subclasses that are in the fighter represent not only 4 different thematic directions that a fighter can go in, but they also represent different levels of complexity, and in some ways, different levels of sort of mechanical idiosyncrasy. And this is something that we will return to when we talk about the other classes, because when we look at the classes, rather the subclasses that each class gets, and when we were choosing the 4 subclasses for every class in the new player's handbook, we were always looking for different levels of complexity, and then also different levels of idiosyncrasy, because we wanted to make sure that each subclass represented a different play style, a different theme, and a different level of complexity.
Let's delve into the subclasses. Fighter Battlemaster is one of my absolute favorites. They have a complexity to them that makes you feel like kind of a wizard.
And that is an identity that we have protected in the revised Battlemaster. There was actually an early version of the revised fighter where we, and I know actually there are many 5e fans who expected us to do this.
Right.
We considered taking the Battlemaster and turning its maneuver system into the baseline for the whole class.
Right.
And we actually spent quite a bit of time several years ago assuming that was the direction we were going in with the fighter. We, as you can see, backed away from that.
Yeah.
And the main reason we did so is we realized that would undermine our goal of providing different levels of complexity for people and different play styles within the fighter. Because even though there are a segment of fans, you included,
Translation. Hey, we heard what all of you guys wanted, and we thought about doing it. We really did, but we thought that if we did this, that's the only subclass anyone would play because it's exactly what people were asking for, and we didn't want to do that because it's got 3 other subclasses. Um, Respect for doubling down on that. Just be forthright about it. I don't care personally. Like I said, I don't see a whole lot of fighter play at any of my tables. Hell, even the campaign where I'm not DMing, that I play with my wife and her friends, I don't think we've got a fighter. No, I take that back. We do have a fighter. He's just already multi-classed away from fighter, and we're only level 4. So there's... I don't see a whole lot of fighter play, so I don't personally care. But also to try and say that Battle Master has the complexity of a wizard to it. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The Battle Master is so simple. I've got a 10-year-old son that I was teaching how to play at 8 years old because he was watching, me and his mom and some of our friends playing, and he wanted to learn how to play, and he was playing a Battle Master fighter. My 8-year-old son was able to learn how to do the Battle Master fighter in less than 20 minutes. So it's always been incredibly simple. I don't know what they're talking about with, it's got a complexity to it that makes you feel like you're playing wizards. No, wizards are complicated. They're complex. They're like a puzzle that you got hanging up that you didn't do anything to keep together. One wrong little poke and they all just fall apart. That's a wizard. The Battle Master fighter is so simple. Literally, children can learn how to do it in under 20 minutes and play them well. So, I don't know. It's just funny that he owned up to listening to what the players wanted, thinking about doing exactly what they wanted, and then deciding, nah, let's not do that.
who love the Battle Master. There are also many fighter players who have no interest in playing the Battle Master or having this whole array of maneuvers to manage. In many ways, I'm glad for the Battle Master's sake that we did not absorb it into the base class because it allowed us to protect the Battle Master as the Battle Master. So a big part of bringing the Battle Master into the new PH was making sure that the maneuvers were all functioning as well as they could, not only in the context of the fighter and the Battle Master, but also in the context of other revisions we'd done in the game. But then we also added in new maneuvers. So if people thought there were a lot before, well, there are even more. Because now you have ambush, bait and switch, commanding presence, and tactical assessment. These maneuver options debuted in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and we have brought them over now to the Player's Handbook to join the other options within the Battle Master.
And again, I always liked commanding presence because this, again, fleshed out, even though you are primarily, but maybe you could be a ranged or melee character, you have additional social options.
Exactly.
And that makes sense for that character. Like it fleshes out the character experience that you're having.
That non-combat angle is also a part of some other tweaks we made inside the Battle Master. So in the Student of War feature, it used to be you got just a tool proficiency. Well, we now also allow you to get another skill proficiency from the fighter's skill list because we wanted the Battle Master to feel more well-rounded. And because we imagine the Battle Master as this sort of chess-playing tactical master who, yes, it's in the name, they are a master of battle, but also cunning and clever. And so that's why we added in that additional skill proficiency. We also completely redesigned the Battle Master's Know Your Enemy feature.
Okay.
We wanted it to have clearer use in battle, And so now, when you use it, and you have a limited number of uses per day, but when you use it, you are able to discern a creature's immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. Essentially, it's in the name, you know your enemy. You size them up, and you're able to figure out the types of damage that's going to do nothing to them, but then also you're going to discern their weaknesses.
Perfect.
So the champion has still the same core identity as before, having a greater chance of scoring critical hits than pretty much anyone else in the game. But we really wanted to bring a bit more oomph to the subclass, so that it would not only continue to be fun for the people who love its more streamlined playstyle, but also so that it might appeal to even those of us who often like a bunch of tactical options, which is one of the reasons why in our playtests I spent so much time myself playing a champion, because I wanted the champion to be at a place where I myself can say, I had a great time playing it.
Right.
And I can say that wholeheartedly, that I had some of my most fun in the last year and a half in our playtesting playing a champion fighter. So weapon mastery with the champion is really like wonderful spice added to a tight, streamlined base. Again, we still wanted to make sure that the champion retained its streamlined nature while getting a little more spice of its own, not relying entirely on weapon mastery to bring that spice, but to get some of its own. And so with that in mind, we redesigned the Remarkable Athlete feature. And it now does a couple of things. First, combining with the champion's greater chance of scoring critical hits, Remarkable Athlete has made it so that whenever the champion scores a critical hit, the champion can move a certain distance without provoking opportunity attacks. So this allows the champion perhaps to score a crit and fell a target, and then without having to use any of their regular move, start making their way toward their next target.
Right.
Or move to another tactically advantageous position on the battlefield. We've also made it so that Remarkable Athlete gives the champion advantage on strength athletics checks, but even better on initiative rolls. Because we view the champion as being this person who is relentlessly pursuing victory, and they are ready to fight. And there are only a few characters in the player's handbook who have this, once they reach a certain level, an always-on advantage on initiative. And the champion is one, the assassin is another, and the rogue, and then the barbarian class all up eventually gets it. This ability is not only fantastic on its own, because it simply means you have a better chance of acting first, or at least sooner, in any battle that you're participating in, but it has an especially nice interaction with how surprise now works. Because the surprise rules in the new player's handbook have been changed. Rather than there being a potential for certain combatants to simply be unable to act during the first round of a fight, a possibility that frankly ended up really unbalancing the game in certain circumstances, because the old surprise rules could very easily trivialize an entire encounter, and often way more so than they were intended to. It was really supposed to be sort of a narrative thing of, oh look, you got the jump on somebody, but causing another side to essentially spend the entire first round of a combat gawking would often mean, in some cases, why are we even having the fight? Like, the DM can just say, you won. And so we wanted there still to be the possibility of feeling like you have an edge, but we needed to defang how powerful surprise was. And so in the new rules, being surprised simply means you have disadvantage on your initiative roll, meaning you are likely to go after the people who surprised you, although it's not guaranteed. The reason why I'm bringing this up in relation to the champion is it means because the champion always has advantage on their initiative rolls, even if they're surprised,
Right, yeah.
they still don't have disadvantage. It just means their advantage is canceled by the disadvantage, meaning the champion, the assassin, and the barbarian are really hard to surprise, which is exactly what we want. We want these characters to...
Always be ready.
They are ready.
Yeah.
They are ready to fight.
Yeah.
Or in the case of the assassin, they're ready to get you.
Yeah. They don't want this. They don't want to fight. They just want. They want to end the fight.
Yeah, the assassin wants the fight to end before it even starts.
It's already over. Yeah.
So there are some other enhancements in the champion. The additional fighting style feature that used to be at level 10 has moved down to level 7. And then at level 10, there's now a brand new feature. It's called Heroic Warrior. And every time the champion starts their turn in combat and doesn't have heroic inspiration, they get it automatically.
Oh, wow.
And remember, the new heroic inspiration lets you re-roll any die roll. So the champion could use this to re-roll their d20 roll in the hope of fishing for crits, but they could also use it to re-roll a damage die or some other die that they're using on their turn. What this means is that a champion, every turn in combat, has a re-roll in their pocket, which, again, simple,
yeah,
but potentially very effective. Finally, their level 18 feature, Survivor, now, in addition to its other functions that it had before, also gives the champion advantage on death saving throws, and they essentially gain their expanded crit range that they have on attack rolls also on death saves. And here's what I mean by that. Now, when they're making death saving throws, if they roll an 18, 19, or 20, when they have this Survivor feature, they gain the benefit of having rolled a 20. They basically, they can roll a critical death saving throw with a bigger range, since that's also their theme with their attack rolls, meaning it is really hard to keep a champion down.
And what does a critical death saving throw do?
So when you roll a 20 on a death saving throw, you gain a hit point, which means you stop dying.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing that can happen to you, because that erases all of the death saving throw failures you might have accrued up to that point, and then you have the potential to get back into the fight.
Lots of people want to play a fighter, a lot of people want to play a wizard, but there's always been something like, I want.
So I do like the changes to the champion. They do make a lot of sense for the subclass itself. I have a problem with the surprise. Now they keep changing it, and that bothers the hell out of me. They're essentially making it so that surprise isn't even a thing anymore. Disadvantage doesn't always matter. There's still a good chance that a creature that's surprised will still go first, depending on the dice roll. And if you ambush something, regardless of the initiative roll, if you ambush something, it should not be able to attack you before your entire party gets a chance to attack first. Doesn't matter how ready they are. You're surprised. You can't do anything on your first turn. That's just the way it is. And by the sounds of it, they're completely changing that to, well, now you can do stuff on your first turn, but you're rolling at disadvantage, so you'll probably go after everyone else. Maybe. You don't know. Maybe I've got +5, on my dex checks, and I rolled an 18 and a 14, which makes my initiative 19. That's still incredibly high. I'm still going first or near first. I've seen people with disadvantage beat out people with advantage plenty of times. You mean to tell me that if monsters get surprised and they have to roll at disadvantage, and they beat the champion fighter that's rolling with advantage, or the assassin rogue that's rolling with advantage, or the barbarian that's rolling with advantage, that they can now attack before the people that ambushed them, the people that surprised them. That's not okay. So I don't like the newest change that they've made to surprise. I probably won't run it that way personally. I know a handful of DMs that also won't like that, and they might not run it that way, or who knows, they might. I don't know. But I know that they won't like it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm splitting hairs. This is supposed to be about the fighter, and that just really irked me, you know. But past that, the rest of the champion fighter sounds really good. Sounds on par for what it's supposed to do. Um, Having a reroll in the pocket for every turn is cool. It's neat. Uh, it's a little bit broken in my opinion, but at the same time, having a reroll doesn't always mean anything. Like I just said, with disadvantage and advantage, um, a lot of times that reroll will still make it so they can't do anything, um, or anything more than they've already done. So I'm not too terribly worried about it. I think it's a neat little gimmick for the fighter to get more people, more veteran players back into playing fighter.
Well, a little bit of magic with me having a sword, having a longbow, just a little touch of magic, and that's what the Eldritch Knight gives you.
Yeah, and the Eldritch Knight is tapping into that exactly. It's meant to be not only there for the person who wants the fighter mage, but maybe even for somebody who played original D&D where elf was a class
Yes.
option that mixed spellcasting and martial ability, and that is exactly what the Eldritch Knight is. The Eldritch Knight retains, its core abilities from 2014, the spellcasting combined with the abilities of the fighter, and the Eldritch Knight in the quartet of classes, rather subclasses, in the fighter, is the first of two, the other one being the Psy Warrior, that are for people who want the fighter mixed with something else.
Yeah.
So the champion and the battle master, they represent sort of the core fighter, but at different ends of the complexity spectrum. The Eldritch Knight and the Psy Warrior, they're instead on a different axis. They're about taking the core shtick of the fighter and combining it with, in the case of the Eldritch Knight, spellcasting, and in the case of the Psy Warrior, psionic power. And they give you two very different routes to follow, also mechanically, because the Eldritch Knight relies on spells mechanically, while the Psy Warrior relies on psionic energy dice and using unique abilities that are built into the Psy Warrior subclass. Now, in the Eldritch Knight, we've made several enhancements to take this popular subclass and make it even better. So one of the things that people will notice right away if they've played the Eldritch Knight before is we no longer have any School of Magic restrictions in the Eldritch Knight. The Eldritch Knight, as well as the Rogue's Arcane Trickster subclass, used to have School of Magic restrictions in them when it came to your spell selection, and we have removed the restrictions from both of those subclasses because we wanted you to have more freedom to build the type of warrior mage you wanted to build with the Eldritch Knight, or in the case of the Arcane Trickster, the type of rogue mage that you wanted to create. The Eldritch Knight also is helpful for the person who maybe does not want to dive into multi-classing, but again wants a little bit of the chocolate mixed with their peanut butter.
Right.
That is the warrior mage. Now, in addition to that, we've also given the Eldritch Knight the ability to use an arcane focus, a detail that was missing in 2014. And then we've redesigned both War Magic and Improved War Magic. Previously, War Magic relied on you taking a bonus action to gain its benefit. Instead, you can now, with War Magic, take the attack action and replace one of your attacks with casting a cantrip. And then improved War Magic, which also now does not rely on a bonus action, now lets you, when you take the attack action, replace 2 of your attacks to cast a level 1 or level 2 spell. So what this does is even better integrate the 2 parts of the Eldritch Knight's identity, their fighterliness and their spellcasting abilities, by taking the spellcasting abilities and really allowing them to take advantage of one of the fighter's main features relative to anyone else in the game, and that is simply the number of attacks that fighters get. Because fighters, with their extra attack feature, gain more attacks than anyone else in the game. The one exception being the monk. The monk does not get all their extra attacks through extra attack. Instead, it's through various unarmed strike shenanigans with their bonus action. And of course, it's the good kind of shenanigans. So this allows, in the Eldritch Knight, the ability for the fighter to integrate their spellcasting into the regular attack routine, and then frees up their bonus action for other uses, so that it isn't being devoured by their subclass's main shtick.
That's what's new with Eldritch Knight. Let's talk about.
So I've always loved the Eldritch Knight as far as fighters go. It is, or has been one of the most complicated subclasses for the fighter. But even still, it's still just an offshoot of the fighter. It's still pretty simple. As far as complexity goes, in my opinion, it's probably one of the more complex ones. Definitely, I do like the changes that they've made, especially to War Magic, enhanced War Magic. Those are going to be useful should people want to play a fighter with a magic inclination. The best way I can describe a Eldritch Knight has always been, if you play Final Fantasy, it's a red mage. You know, they're great frontline fighters, but they also have a little bit of magic to boost them up, and that's always a fun gimmick. Well, this isn't looking good for the Psy Warrior. They've only got less than 2 minutes in this. I don't know. I like the premise of an Eldritch Knight. I know I make some NPCs that have been Eldritch Knights in the past, and they've been fun to use. So I'm looking forward to these changes.
The Psy Warrior.
So the Psy Warrior first appeared in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and is a way for you to take the fighter foundation and add to it this character who manipulates the battlefield with the powers of their mind. And this includes various telekinetic abilities, being able to hurl things around with your mind, as well as defensive capabilities, all of which is handled by using psionic energy dice that represent your character's psionic energy. And the subclass, for anyone who has played it before, will feel very similar. And the main changes that we've made to it in integrating it into the new player's handbook has largely been to just reword things, reframe some things so that it fits naturally in the context of the new rulebook and in the context of the broader fighter class.
So you've given the fighter a lot of new things.
Yes.
All right, so I can't say a whole lot on the Psy Warrior. I'm not too well versed in it because Tasha's Cauldron of Everything was not one of my most used books. But by the sounds of it, it didn't really need a whole lot of changes. And it really didn't change a lot. It sounds fun. What the minute and 19 seconds or the minute and 16 seconds they put into talking about it in this video sounds fun. It sounds neat. Sounds like it's probably full of gimmicks, and gimmicks are a great way to bring about shenanigans that are fun. But that's about where my opinion on the Psy Warrior ends, just because I don't know a whole lot about it, and they didn't tell me anything about it. when talking about the Psy Warrior, they were about as useful as a ranger. So I apologize on that one. I've got no opinion either way with the Psy Warrior. Um, but that's the new fighter, and it seems really fun, and I like a lot of the changes that are being done. Some of the changes won't matter because they're so late. They're so late leveled that nobody's gonna ever see them. They won't ever really see the light of day, um, unfortunately. But I have to say this because I've said it before. The art that they keep showing is great, but I love how every single piece of artwork they showed during the champion section was just some muscle mommy. That's great. It made me chuckle. Um, this book is looking like really good. Art wise, changes to classes wise. I think the fighter's finally going to see a lot more play at my tables. I know the fighter is kind of a common staple at tables, especially Adventures League, because people want to play it safe. Uh, but it seems fun. It does. I look forward to seeing the changes in actual play, and not just them kind of skimming over the key point changes. And obviously, once I get my player's handbook, when it comes out in September, I will go over these again. I'll do the classroom style breakdown, where it will break out my whiteboard and everything, and we'll go over all of the actual changes, and I'll break it down in more detail than they did here. So look forward to that. And if you learned anything here, or if you like the sound of my voice for some reason, be sure to give me a like and go ahead and subscribe for me. I'm coming real close to my goal of 400 subscribers. I'm going on vacation next month, and I really want to hit 400 subscribers before I do. So I've got until the middle of August to hit 400 subscribers. So if you guys could help me out with that, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you don't want to see my ugly mug or hear my voice, I get it. But thanks for watching if you've made it this far. I do really appreciate it.